This episode is brought to you by Zencastr. Zencastr is the #1 tool for all podcasters. You can record high-fidelity audio between remote locations and get studio-quality sound. Go to Zencastr.com and use coupon code THATENTERTAINS for 20% off for 3 months or 20% off an annual plan.
This is a That's Entertainment podcast.
Awesome. Just tell people they're awesome and mean it.
Awesome.
Did you have an awesome time? Did you drink awesome shooters and listen to awesome music and then just sit around and soak up each other's awesomeness?
Awesome. That was awesome. You guys are awesome.
No,
You're awesome.
no.
You are awesome.
Sir, you are awesome. Seriously.
Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Welcome to this week's edition of Everything is Awesome. I am your host, Kev, and this is the show where we sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. And we have such a fun show this week. I'm very excited to be sitting down and talking with a friend of the show, someone we've had on in the past. It's been about 100 episodes almost since he's been on. And I am so glad that he was able to come back on. His time is super busy being a full-time creator and whatnot. We'll get to that in a second. I want to just thank everyone for being here, for listening. It means a lot. You could be doing anything with your time, and you choose to be with us, and that means a lot. There's a lot of podcasts out there, and hopefully you get enjoyment out of this hour or so of a dopey conversation. For my side, at least, it's dopey. Our guests always have very insightful things to say and have great point of views that I cherish on this show. We are part of the That's Entertainment Podcast Network, and you can find us on thatentertains.com/network or on awesomepodcast.com. And there are a couple important links for you to check out for us, like our Patreon, patreon.com/thatentertains is a great way to support this show and the entire That's Entertainment Podcast Network. For as little as $1 to a month, you can get a base subscription, $5 a month, $10 a month. There's whole different levels that you can subscribe at, which gets you early access, high quality audio, exclusive content, and much more. Check it out. Please follow this show on Twitter and Facebook at RealAwesomePod, or you can follow me directly on Twitter at ThatNerdyKev. As I was saying, it's been close to a year and a half since we've had James D'Amato on the show. That's right, he's back. Mr. James D'Amato is one of my favorite people to sit down and chat with. Since we last spoke with James, he's accomplished quite a bit. He made the One Shot Network his full-time job. The long-running Star Wars campaign is coming to an end with a new show rising in its ashes, and James has published a book. We chat about all that and more right here on awesomepodcast.com. Please stick around after the interview because we're going to be doing a much different outro than we normally do here on the show. So please stick around. And again, you can find us here on awesomepodcast.com and thatentertains.com/network. I was looking today to see how long ago it was, and it was episode 57 back in March.
Where are y'all at now?
This is going to be episode 144, maybe 145.
Wow!
Yes,
Congratulations. You're almost to the big 150.
Yeah, which I probably should actually start looking at as something to do something special for.
We're about to hit I think 300 over at One Shot, and I have not even charted out like a plan for it. In the past, like every milestone I've been like, okay, you're gonna have this at this point, so you should make sure that you get a big guest or something. No plans, nothing like that.
No, I usually past milestone episodes have been episode 25 was me sitting in a car by myself interviewing myself as Batman. Then episode 50 actually was the same thing because I was supposed to have a guy whose actual name is Thor, and we were gonna talk to him as Marvel's Thor, but that fell through. So Batman came to the rescue the last second. And then episode 100, we actually did, so far, the only actual play episode of Everything is Awesome where I had Jeff Stormer run a live show with his game that he's about to launch, Mission Accomplished.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, we brought in a bunch of like local Philly improvisers so that like there was funny people, unlike myself, on the show. And it was now do you guys do like any live performances of actual plays?
Yeah, we've done a bunch. It's like really only select games that we do it with, but like we've done a couple live versions of Dread,
Yeah.
and we've done my game Millennial Apartment Hunters a couple times.
I mean, I've only played I guess I think I only play actual plays when they're involved with like like role playing games when it's actually a podcast. I don't think I can't tell you the last time I sat down and played just to sit around with friends. So I don't play that often. I'm more of like I'm a fan of like listening to your show obviously and the countless others that are out there. A lot of them on your network.
We've definitely built up a collection at this point.
Yeah. So, and that's what I think is neat. Is so in the year and a half that you've since you've been on this show, you have done something that many of a podcaster dream of, and you do it full time now.
That is true. Yeah. I was lucky enough to be able to build up our Patreon to the point where it paid me enough to pursue this full time. And that's been fantastic. It really has.
Is it everything that a lot of us dream it's to be, or is there like some really negative things that come along with it?
So, I mean, I will say that even though this is work doing something that, fulfills me artistically, creatively, and I care about it more than, any day job I've ever had in my life, that doesn't mean it's not work. And one of the things that you deal with, especially if you are pursuing your passion as a career, is that you put fewer limitations on yourself. There's less of a divide between you and your work when you do that. So, it's easier to take things home with you, and you have to work very hard to build up separations between, okay, when is it time to stop working? I think one of the things that podcasters or creative people generally, like comedians, worry about when they decide to take their thing full time is like, oh man, how am I going to be able to motivate myself to do this thing when I'm working from home? Because it's such an unfocused environment. And how am I going to have professional rigor? And I think there are perhaps some people that experience that problem, but it's been more common for me to talk to other people like doing creative things full time. Trying to find an off switch is a lot harder. Like trying to actually step away and put it down and be like, okay, I am a person now. I am not working at this point.
Yeah, and it's hard to, I guess, and I mean, you've experienced both sides of it now, but like, as someone who has a day job still, I like every free moment I have, whether it's at my day job or it's after hours, is like spent either being a dad or doing this or one of the show, editing a show on my network or something like that. So it's I feel like it would just be constant work for me because it's. I can't imagine not wanting to sit around and just do it all day long. And then I guess my off switch would be my kids out. Like I have a built-in off switch.
Yeah. And honestly, my wife has been a huge help in, helping me create those borders, create those separations between, when is work time and when is it time to relax and step outside of that part of yourself. Still, like all of my friends are involved in the industry. Like there's still a lot of really, really close ties to work. And, usually what I do to relax and have fun is like play games, either role-playing games or board games. So I'm still like in it no matter what, but it is a healthier relationship, and it's difficult to create that divide initially, and that has been the toughest thing I think that I've experienced from this. But that and like I do make money from the show, but it is not like a ton of money. It's not something that I would accept, like a wage that I would accept from any other job. So like there are some financial trade-offs for it as well. but even though there are sacrifices, I do think of the sacrifices as worth it. And I feel extremely grateful and lucky that I'm able to do this.
Yeah. And it also, I imagine, allows you to have more time to do many more creative things outside of just the podcast or just the Twitch stream. Like, one of the things we're going to be talking about today, you were able to write a book. I'm sure if you had a day job, it would have been way more difficult to write that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. There's no way I could have written the book on the timeline that my publisher had me write that book if I was still in a day job. So that's definitely true. Like it has afforded me so many other opportunities to pursue things creatively. And also it's helped me keep the network together. If I still had a day job, I guarantee Kat leaving the network would have had an even larger impact than it already did, because I wouldn't be able to keep One Shot and campaign going both by myself. So, it has made it so that it is possible to do the things that I am doing today in like every conceivable way. I cannot imagine a version of myself able to do all the things that I've done in the past year and a half if I still had that day job.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to say, because you glossed over it, I do want to formally congratulate you on getting married. Congrats, sir.
Oh, thank you very much.
And it's I guess it's got to be super nice to have someone that's just I imagine super supportive. Otherwise, how involved was your wife in the decision to should I do this full time? Should I make the jump now? Did she help encourage you to push towards that?
Absolutely. I wouldn't have health insurance if it wasn't for Mel. So yes. I think Mel has made a lot of sacrifices to help me make this career work. And she's been tremendously supportive of that. And without her, I certainly wouldn't be able to do this either, because I'd still have to find some way to have access to healthcare, or perhaps One Shot as a business would be growing more slowly because I would have to be diverting more of our money towards, keeping me alive. Instead, I've been able to use that money and put new shows on the network and help provide our contributors more opportunities. So
yeah, it's nice to have like that, a supportive system around you to live out your wildest creative dreams. It's nice to have that, even if even when you have a day job, because you probably need it more when you have the day job. Speaking from experience, because you're so you're left with so little time to do the creative thing because that stupid 9-to-5er. So to have someone like my fiance is very, I work around, the kids, the family when we have events and whatnot, but very supportive when I go do live shows or when I go do panels at conventions or press. So it's nice to have that support system.
Absolutely. Everyone in your life, like spouses, I imagine kids, I bet kids take more care than anything else, but I any friends or family, they help fortify you and nurture you when you do something like this. It was a part of me when I was younger, starting out in this, going, oh man, if I wasn't going on dates all the time, I would have a lot more time to dedicate to my work. But I would have also collapsed as a human being if I didn't take that time to care for myself.
Yes.
And it is Mel who helped me concoct a schedule with One Shot that makes sense and allows me to step away and create time for myself where I'm focused on relaxing and rejuvenating myself. And that's prevented me from burning out. So I could not have done this without her.
And speaking of a schedule, how do you still kind of try to do a very traditional 9-to-5, or does the nature of the type of work One Shot is it kind of all over the place, or how does the schedule work?
So I try to keep a 9-to-5 schedule if I can. It varies day to day, and I like there. I think in the past 4 or 5 months, I have had to hold more meetings as the person in charge of One Shot than like I ever have in all of the years that I have been doing it before. So like the nature of the work changes, and you know, I'm not able to spend like 9 to 5 always editing the show or you know, constructing our creative schedule for the next couple months or whatever. It's when, especially when you're running a small business, like the title that you have like really means that you're just going to be doing a bunch of different small jobs across the board. So like I try to keep that 9 to 5 schedule, but it is difficult to parse like what the actual hours are. I will say before I left the day job, I think I put about 50 hours a week into One Shot, and now that I'm out of the day job, I think it is closer to 40, but it is a more efficient 40. You know, I'm using that time a lot better. I'm not stealing moments and beating my head against a wall when I'm already tired to get a piece of content done. So it's a much healthier and more efficient work schedule.
That's neat. I think is what, as a content creator, like what gets me is like I'm putting so much, and I don't put 50 hours a week into this necessarily, but I still put in like what even if it's 20 to 30 hours a week extra. It's like how
that's a job.
Yeah, like it's I would say it's closer to 30 than it is, you know, anything lower than that, and we'll creep up to 40, especially if there's like cons to go to and whatnot like that, because that's 8 to 10 hour day of me doing, like, now it's not just me going there for fun. Now I'm going to either like at Keystone Comic Con, the new con in Philly. I was there to work as the press, like I was there covering everything, and then Wizard World I was doing a panel, so that was a little bit more fun. That was a little less work, but still work. But yeah, that's where I hope I think it's amazing that you were able to actually shave not only your day job, so that's 40 hours, but 10 hours off your One Shot work and it be more effective. That's neat.
Yeah. I mean, like, it is one of those things where if I was still doing things that way, I imagine it would leave me so tired that I would be getting either the same amount done in a longer period of time or even less done. So it's really amazing what a healthy schedule can bring you in your creative work, for sure.
And man, so many other things have changed. Obviously, you mentioned Kat leaving the network, which I'm sure was devastating, you know, for you, because now you're doing it on your own, the network, right?
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, it was a difficult decision for both of us to make, but you know, we wanted to prioritize our friendship in all things, and we realized that was the right thing to do for us as friends, which ultimately meant that it was the most important thing to do. And I don't think it's been easy for either of us, like necessarily, but I think in the long run, it's definitely going to be a good thing. For me personally, it has meant taking on a lot more work because, you know, I have been editing all of the episodes of Campaign that have been coming out. And that's like in addition to setting up the new campaign, which generates a lot of work, and all of the things that like used to be sort of shared labor between Kat and I, logistically, managerially, running the network are now sort of all on my shoulders. And I'm trying to, you know, with the rest of the hosts on the network and the team that we have behind the scenes, I'm trying to delegate work more and you know, trust other people to take care of things as they are out of my hands, so that we can keep this network running in its new form.
It's and I would imagine, especially the content, the actual art that you created, that's got to be a hard thing. Is like having that trust in someone else to say, here, take all this and edit it into something listenable like that. Like my heart, I'm having a panic attack for you thinking about having to trust someone else to do that. I don't know. And maybe because I've always been very solo in my podcasting career. Like I have a lot of friends that will come on and be a guest or help me co-host or whatever, and they'll help me, but no one else runs anything with me. It's all me. So it would feel really like I to trust someone to be like, hey, make this sound good, because obviously everyone like that the art of editing is very, it's you edit different than I edit, so it's that's a lot of trust you have. Is it like is that hard to let go, like that creative?
Not exactly. I've been podcasting for 6 years now, and from the very beginning, it was a collaboration. My first
Okay.
show was called The Overshare, and I did that with my buddy Alex Manich. And for the first, I want to say 15, 20 episodes of The Overshare, I edited the show, and Alex came to me, when we were a little bit into our collaboration together and said, hey, I want to learn how to edit. And he just sort of took over from that point. And letting go, I realized like, hey, the show still comes out if I'm not the one that edits it. At the end of the day, for me as an artist, because I'm managing so many different things, the most important thing is that something gets done.
Yes.
And it does not matter who does it. With Skyjacks in particular, that is something that is extremely close to me. I have collaborated with all of the performers to build up a setting that really feels like it's ours. And I am extremely excited about the stories that we're telling on that show. And as I am handing them off to editors to manage that aspect of the show for me, that there is part of me that's like, okay, well, I'm going to have to go back and listen to this and make sure that certain aspects of this are done correctly and whatnot. But like I am working very hard to have myself go, no, I am not even the best creative editing voice for this program. There are people who are better at, working with music than I am. There are people who will have more time and will be coming at it with fresher eyes. So they're going to catch things that I don't catch as they go through on their edits. Which, ultimately means that it's going to be the best thing for this creative project that I really do care very much about, to place it in somebody else's hands.
I wish I had that. That's something, maybe maybe that's the lesson I'll take away from you after this interview is to let go of some things and have other people edit things for me. But you mentioned campaign, the new Skyjack. How is it? Because obviously, I mean, you see the outpouring of support and love from everyone on Twitter with the hashtag BuyKnock, and what's the Star Wars campaign meant to them. And I know, like I'm waiting for the last episode or two, however you ended up editing it down, to come out. That's going to be a very emotional day for many people, myself included. How has it been, like, since you're pretty much you've been doing both old campaign and new campaign? How has it been, especially leading up to this week, the last episode of Star Wars campaign? Like, how is that emotional ride for you?
So I think I will take it back to something that Johnny and JPC said to me after Gen Con this year. We went to Gen Con and we did our campaign live show panel, where, we got everybody who was at Gen Con who had been involved in campaign. We got them to come to that panel and do their characters and do some ridiculous bits for the audience. And we had somebody there on Twitter, they're called Coaster Child, and Coast was there with the most incredible Lenik Gilo cosplay imaginable. And someone else that was there in an unbelievable Nemoidian Sparks cosplay. And, we had so many like enthusiastic people who were so happy to see us. And we put on this performance that was just us having fun together. And he said, Johnny, like said to us while we were in the back, sort of right after everything was clearing out, just after taking photos with all the fans and whatnot. Johnny said, "This was great. This felt so great doing this, but it also showed me that this is over now, and I feel good about that." It has been tough letting go of campaign. It has been like such an emotionally close thing for me. Campaign is not only like this truly incredible thing that helped me leave my day job and pursue my dream career, but it's also the longest like role playing campaign that I've ever played in. I felt tremendously close to the character Bacta. I really do very much care about everything that happens to Lenik and Trist and Lynn and Tamlin. Like it it it's so difficult stepping away from that. But everybody who's been involved with Skyjacks, like from the first moment when we were sort of sketching out what is the show going to be after we finish the Star Wars campaign, we started putting this world together, and very clearly you could see that everyone involved bought in immediately. And this isn't like campaign where we were playing in a couple different people's sandboxes, right?
Yes,
like
yeah.
there's Star Wars, that is this massive property that not only is it like does it belong to a corporation, but it belongs to a huge fan base that all have huge opinions about what it is and what it should be. And when you're somebody like me or like JPC, maybe less so Johnny and Kat, who we know Star Wars, we like Star Wars, but we're certainly not the most knowledgeable people in any room that we walk into about Star Wars. It doesn't feel like it's entirely a thing that you possess, even if you make a character that is truly your own. And the world of campaign is distinct, I think, from most mainstream Star Wars stuff. It feels a little bit borrowed. And on top of that, campaign, I can say unquestionably was Kat's show. It's a collaboration, like it is at the end of the day for any actual play that you do. So many of the great moments came about because we had this brilliant ensemble cast working very hard together. But Kat made it very clear to us that she was to have final edits on the production, and she made decisions about the story. And in Skyjacks and how we put together Skyjacks, the performers, because we're all improvisers, we're used to working as an ensemble. And so we put things together a lot more collaboratively, and everyone has a lot more agency over that world because there's not a built-in history. There aren't, thousands or millions of people who have opinions about what the universe should be. And at least right now in these early stages, I, as the game master, am not of the opinion that this world is totally mine and that I should be in control of the story. Because, I feel like half of the time when I'm looking at something in the Skyjacks universe, it's something that like Liz or Tyler or JPC came up with. And I'm like, I wonder how that works. I don't have the answer to that question. So it feels, I don't know, it feels different and refreshing in how it's different. So while I am so sad to be leaving behind the campaign universe because I truly love the characters from our Star Wars campaign, everybody over at the Skyjacks team is really excited to bring our audience this new story and these new characters and build something fresh together.
I am campaign Star Wars, and I'm more, despite how much Star Wars actually means to me, I'm actually more a lot like you, in the sense that like I'm not an expert at any, like I like the movies and I've maybe read a book, outside in the expanded universe. Aside from that, I haven't even watched any of the cartoons yet. So it's more of an attachment with my uncle that I have because of it. And you guys rolled around for me personally right when I needed it the most. And so it's going to be sad to say goodbye, this week. But I am super excited for Skyjacks. And you mentioned it's totally, an open sandbox because it's you guys created it, correct?
Yeah. We created it inspired by the music of the Decemberists. So we were using like the folk tales that show up in those musics and like the general tone of Decemberist music. And like, we were like, okay, so the world is populated by sad sailors and people struggling to live in like sort of an older economy. So we took that as inspiration, but like there are no rules for the world because we write the rules for the world. And I think everybody's characters like did a really good job at echoing those core themes. And we sort of built the world up around those characters. And now it's ours to be let loose in.
Mm-hmm. Now what's obvious, the Star Wars campaign used the Fantasy Flight system. Are you guys using a particular system for Skyjacks?
So we are using Genesis as our core resolution system. For those that don't know, Genesis is the generic version of the Star Wars role-playing game that Fantasy Flight put out. But we're making a lot of changes to it. And, I don't even know that Genesis is going to be the game that we use by the end of what we do with Skyjacks. It's just the solution that works right now because all of the performers know it. But the big change that we've made right off the bat is we incorporated a mechanic that's similar to one used in the Invisible Sun role-playing game published by Monty Cook Games. That uses the deck of luminaries from the card game Illimat. If you don't know Illimat is a like sort of traditional Hoyle's Book of Card Games style game that was designed by Keith Baker in collaboration with the Decemberists. It's this really cool old style card game that like it is so well designed and so much fun to play. At this point in my life, I look at games like poker as kind of a waste of time. Poker seems very boring to me. It's like the checker to the chess of Illimat. It's such a fun game, but it uses these like large style tarot style cards that add new rules to the game as you play it, and make it so that each hand of Illimat plays differently. And we use those tarot style cards as a storytelling foundation in the world. And you flip over tarot cards in our version of this role-playing game to determine thematic influence on the world. You'll be able to see how we do it in the first couple episodes, but it's a way for us to take a more shorthand look at certain things in storytelling that it like grounds things to character a lot more, because like if you've ever gotten a tarot reading, you're automatically sort of looking for connections to your real life. Like just because you're a human being, you find those connections easily and you build those connections easily. And when you do that in storytelling, it creates a really strong, cohesive story. You're always looking for the themes for your character or the best thematic influence for the particular moment of the story that you happen to be in. Through the divination of the cards. I think it's really fascinating, and like people listening won't even know how exciting and interesting certain moments are until we get like 10 or 12 episodes into the show, because some of the cards that we pulled match the characters so perfectly, you don't even appreciate it until you know everything about the characters.
I'm super. I can't wait for Skyjacks. And I don't know. It seems like a nice. It's going to be a fun piratey. I don't know if pirate's the right thing, but a piratey adventure is what it seems like, and it almost seems like it is like a loose continuation of even Star Wars campaign, because that vibe I get listening to the Crew of the Minoc is very it's almost pirate like, you know. So
yeah, piratey was a big thing that we were pulling on, because with the world that we were trying to create with First Fear, when we were looking at Decemberist stuff, like, you could have done a really good, very true to what they're going for thing with Decemberists, like folk tales and whatnot, if you did sort of an anthology series that's vignettes peeking inside a world and just like looking at people as their lives fall apart. But to us, that didn't feel very true to what campaign is, or so much true to like the popular idea of what a role-playing game is. Like, at the end of the day, a role-playing game is adventure fiction. So and everything's a little bit larger than life. So while in a Decemberist story, if somebody got in a fight, you know, they might get stabbed in the stomach and start bleeding out and sing a sad ballad as they're doing so. But in a role-playing game, like, you are telling a story about the character who survives that fight and goes on to the next one. So like we looked at what is adventure fiction, what is classic adventure fiction, and a big part of that are stories like Treasure Island. Piracy is a huge part of that, and it feels like very close together, because classic literature that's like kind of adventure-y and kind of downbeat and Decemberisty is something like Moby Dick. It's the perfect sort of crossover to have this kind of maritime influence. So pirate fiction is a lot of it, and like the original concept that Johnny and JPC came to me with is, they said, we want to be sky pirates. Let's figure out how to make that happen. And so we talked through things, and eventually I suggested like this Decemberists influence, because I had just seen one of their concerts in Chicago, and I had been listening to their new album, I'll Be Your Girl, like nonstop for a long time. And I'm like, hey, how would we feel about doing something like this and tying in this influence? But yeah, to get back at what you were saying earlier, the core of Star Wars is adventure fiction as well. It's pulp serials that George Lucas was really inspired by when he put that story together. So the connection to campaign, the connection to piracy fiction, like, it's all there because we were very much going for that.
And that is, if I remember the dates correctly, Skyjacks is going to debut next week, right, on the 17th.
Yep, next Wednesday.
So, and if you're listening to that, that's literally 1 week from today. If you're listening on release day, you'll see it in 7 days, and I'm stoked. It's sad to see the chapter end on Star Wars, but there's an exciting new chapter that I think everyone's excited for. It sounds like, at least.
Yeah, I think everybody is sort of bracing themselves for an emotional last episode to campaign. At this point, it looks like most people have voted that they would like everything to be released as one big episode. I think they're expecting an emotional ride. It is a debrief episode, and as I was editing it, I think it might be the funniest thing that we've ever done. So people might go in expecting to hear themselves cry, and perhaps you will, but it is a funny one. It is a good one.
Well, those debriefing ones, those battle episodes are usually, I don't want to say my favorite, because there's a lot of moments that happen in the other actual adventure stories through Star Wars campaign that I love as well. But those battle episodes are truly hilarious. It's where you guys really kind of just let loose. And for me, like, that's exciting to know that there's gonna be a lot of laughter. I don't think necessarily I'm expecting, at least, an emotional episode. I think it's more just emotional for me to know that this is going to be the last time I listened to something new from the Star Wars campaign universe. But it's allowing me an opportunity now to go back and re-listen to everything again. Like that's the beautiful thing, is like, and I don't know how people are reacting, aside from what I see on Twitter, but if like you can always go back and listen to episode 1 of campaign and just listen to it again. Like the crew of the Minoc will be there forever. So I'm excited, but I'm excited for Skyjacks coming out on the 17th. And what you have planned for that it seems super exciting with the kind of brand new setting, never seen before, and modified game mechanics. I'm excited.
I am very excited to show it off too. I've already shared the first episode with people who've done fan art, fan fiction, cosplay, and like other fan-driven creative projects for one-shot programs in the past. And the reaction to that has been very good. So I can't wait to share it with our larger audience too. I think it's going to be great.
So I do want to let's chat about the book now. That's the other big thing that has happened, and I'm sure there's plenty more things that have happened in the last year and a half that we could talk about, but these are kind of the major ones that I wanted to hit on. And obviously the book is a huge deal. And I have it sitting next to me right now. The Ultimate RPG Character Backstory Guide, Prompts and Activities to Create the Most Interesting Story for Your Character by Mr. James D'Amato, right there on the book. How exciting is it to see your name in print?
It is wild. I mean, I sort of had a little bit of this experience before when I did Noisy Person cards.
Yes.
But, being somebody who is dyslexic and was like diagnosed with dyslexia when I was 8, I never expected to write a book in my life. And the whole process of putting this book out has felt entirely surreal. I still can't believe it exists when I look at it. It has been a really wild ride, and I guess I don't have all the words that I need to express that.
Well, and you shared your story about having dyslexia and having to write this book on Twitter, and it was like a very well written thread. I think you mentioned that one of them had a typo.
Yeah, a couple of them had typos.
But it's the message that was there was like it was like over. I don't know if overcoming is the right word phrasing, but being able to do something that is a challenge for you and completing it and doing it well. That's such an important message, I think, to share with especially young people who deal with things that they feel hold them back, and being able to see someone like you who can like get over that hurdle. I don't know if I'm phrasing that right, because I feel like you still it's not like it went away, but you were able to get the book done. And that, I think, I don't know if that's like the biggest sense of pride for you, but it sure hell feels like it for me. Like if that, I'm not, I guess I don't have any kind of reading issues. I have writing issues. I'm not well. I don't structure words together well, obviously, as I get through this statement here. But it's so when I do sit down and write fiction, it's like, all right, and I give it to a friend and he reads it, and it's like, oh, it's good on you. This is a good story. You should post it somewhere. Like it's a good sense of pride that, hey, I was able to like structure together pages of things that actually made sense. So is that like the biggest sense of pride from the book? Is doing it just in spite of?
I mean, it's one of those things where, again, like I just didn't expect it to happen, and the way that it came about was like so surreal, because it was the publisher approaching me asking me to do it, and like initially I didn't even understand that they wanted me to write the whole book, and by the time that I figured that out, we were also we were already pretty far into like negotiations. Like it was basically from their end, they're like, oh yeah, we're ready to pull the trigger on this thing and sign contracts. And I was like, oh, you meant the whole book. So like I addressed the task of doing it like one small part at a time. So like even during the writing process, when I was very deep into doing that work, it never felt like that was a huge, like I was taking on this monumental challenge. It always felt like I was doing a bunch of smaller challenges towards this goal. And the editorial process for this book happened so quickly. Like it happened in less than a month. And then it disappeared for a while. And then I got an email from like my publisher's publicist being like, okay, let's get ready to promote this thing. And you know, now it's out. So I haven't spent a lot of time able to emotionally process it, and it is kind of a wild thing, and it's also doing pretty well right now. So it's, I don't know, it's this very surreal thing that I'm very happy that I did, and I'm very amazed that I was able to do it. And a lot of good things have come out of it.
And anyone that hasn't picked it up yet, or if you've just been curious about it, like it's what I love about it as someone who I am definitely a tabletop role-playing enthusiast. I love listening to, as I mentioned earlier, podcasts and stuff. I do very, very little of it in my own personal life, because everyone I know is adults and we all have kids. So it's hard to get that group together from time to time. But what I love about it is, despite it being made to kind of work on, characters for, whatever role-playing game that you're playing, it's actually a really good tool. I found it to be for when I'm wanting to develop characters for a book I'm working on, or even beyond the character. Like you can build the world, a fictional world from this book. So I think it's anyone that is a creative storyteller could find use from this book, because you can expand a character that you created for your story's background. You can create a holiday for the whole world of your story. And I think that's like, I don't know if that was something in your head when you started doing this, was like, oh, this will be used, like this could be used for more than just role-playing games?
So I did think of like there being a couple practical applications for it. The idea of somebody using it as creative writing, like, was a faint idea for some of the exercises in the back of my head, but I really didn't anticipate like the number of people who have been reaching out to me and saying like, hey, I'm a writer and this is something that's going to be useful to me to sort of encourage my creative writing process. And like my publisher suggested to me that people who play video game based role-playing games can use this to flesh out their own personal like characters' backstory in those video games. So people have like come up with uses for this book that are far beyond what I originally envisioned when I sat down to write it. And that's been incredible. Like that's what you hope for when you create any role-playing game related product, is that you hope you give somebody something that they can take and make their own in ways that would surprise you.
And it's also very beautiful. Like I love, like it's the cover is, I think, it's a simple design, but it makes it work. Like it's a rock star design. Like it's, I don't know, it's something I carry in my bag with me all the time now. And it's, I pick out if I want to have, like I say, if I need to figure something out for a character that I'm working on for something, or like I'm working on a project for a podcast that I'm like this and the source material for the game are going to be side by side, and it's going to be helping fuel basically the whole podcast. Because because it's not dungeon, like I'm not doing a Dungeons and Dragons thing. It's something that's very, and I can tell you when we're not recording because I haven't announced it yet, but it's something that's very, I think, unique in the world of actual plays. And it's I want to say last time we talked, almost 100 episodes ago, how when you started doing doing one shot, it was a small landscape for actual play podcasts.
For sure, yeah.
And shows like One Shot and The Adventure Zone and other actual play podcasts have helped like just expand that entertainment field big time. So it's almost like every time I have an idea, I'm like, well, it doesn't have a hook enough for me to actually like go out and do this because it's already being done somewhere else. And so I finally found like a project that would work. And as I started working on it, I got the review copy electronically for your book, and I started looking at that. I was like, this is going to, it just gives more content to what I have planned. And so that's why it sits with me every single day. It's with me 7 days a week. And it's again, I think anyone out there that does anything creatively would find a good use for it. And do you have plans to do like any kind of follow up to this book, or just in general? Like, has this sparked your writing ambition at all?
Well, it's too early to say anything for sure. I will say for the past couple of years, I have been kicking around the idea of putting out a guide that sort of explains my process and approach to when I run role-playing games. Like similar to, very early on in the history of One Shot, I did a small show called Critical Success, where I sort of broke down different techniques and approaches to how I operate at the table. And that eventually just became, too much work for me to balance alongside One Shot. But it is something that I've always wanted to put together. And certainly writing this book has taught me that I am capable of writing a book. But, I am somebody who has a lot of different options for how I want to spend my time. So I can't say for certain exactly how I'll be doing things in the future. But if my publisher is interested in working with me again, perhaps I'd be able to come up with something else.
I hope so. And I would love to see something like fiction from you, because you're a wonderful storyteller. Like it's every, whether it's on One Shot or, I guess One Shot, because you're just editing campaign currently. So we'll see with Skyjacks, but definitely with One Shot, these little mini like anthologies that you're basically putting together, you're a wonderful storyteller. And I think that you could do, obviously you can write a book. As you mentioned, it's what's nice about it is it's 100 activities. So for you, it sounds like that was nice because you were able to break that up into basically 100 chunks.
Yeah.
So what I'm asking you to do is definitely a lot harder, saying write me a 300-page novel. But I would love to see you do something like that in the future, because I think you're a wonderful storyteller, and obviously you can write a book now. So that would be a neat challenge to see you do.
Yeah, I would be interested to see how that turned out for me. But like one thing that I have sort of learned is that the reason that I gravitated towards podcasting is, for me, it is the easiest and most immediately fulfilling form of creative expression for me.
Yes.
Which is why I do One Shot. And one of the reasons I love role-playing games is I find them so creatively rewarding and fulfilling. I have so many ideas, so many creative ideas, that it's hard for me to keep up with them, even with One Shot, where I'm essentially getting to tell a new story every month. Going and doing something like writing a novel or a screenplay or what have you, it's an exciting idea, but I don't know how well I'd be able to keep up with it, or how long I'd be able to stay interested in that, because I'm trying to get out as much creativity as I possibly can while I have the ideas. But, who knows? I never thought I would write a book either,
Yeah.
and here we are.
Yeah. So is there any anything else big coming up with you in One Shot or you personally, like, like the book? Is there any other big projects you got, you're working on that you can talk about?
Well, one of the big things that we're working on right now over here at One Shot is converting our live stream series, A Woman with Hollow Eyes, into a podcast.
Okay.
So we've finished editing a couple episodes. I think I'm going to wait until I have a small backlog before I start releasing it publicly. But when we do, it's going to be another podcast, like the shows that we have already out on the network. And that will help us lead into launching season 2 of A Woman with Hollow Eyes, which is going to be kickstarted the same way that season 1 was kickstarted. That show, for those who don't know, uses Monty Cook Games' Invisible Sun role-playing game. It's GM'd by Darcy Ross, who is a very dear friend of mine and also happens to be the community relations coordinator for Monty Cook Games. It's something that she and I sort of conspired to put together before she even worked at MCG. And, when Invisible Sun finally started coming out, we were really excited to put it together and actually bring it to the world. It stars myself, Kat Cool, and used to star, season 1 at least, starred Alan Linick, who is a performer who used to live in Chicago, who, I have a tremendous amount of respect for and I love playing with. But he recently got cast on SNL as a writer, so he had to move off to New York. So he is not going to be able to return for season 2. But we're really excited still about where the story can go and what we can do with our characters.
And that's the game where there's a lot of material to help play when you're not at the table, right? Like, because you did a couple one-shot specials.
Yeah. So there are a couple different ways to play Invisible Sun, and they have something called development mode using the Sooth deck, which is an idea that I found so inspirational. I adapted it to our play style and campaign. It's the mechanic that I based our Luminary system on. It's a phenomenal mechanic, and MCG is putting out an app to accompany that mechanic, so that you should be able to play even when you're not at the table, which is a really fascinating thing.
That's something that I think is incredibly useful, because there's a lot of games, a lot of times your table, maybe you can only meet once every other month, and there's so much more that you could do to stay invested. I think that's a huge problem with my table that my buddy ran, where we played and then suddenly people can't make it for a month or two, and then we just kind of forget about the game because it's been 6 months. So that's
Right.
a great a tool to at least keep some people when they're not at the table or able to meet interested in the game, and keep it alive beyond that, between meetings.
Absolutely. And actually, the way that Invisible Sun works, they sort of have a pre-programmed in as part of the system way to explain away certain characters not arriving for certain sessions and whatnot. It's a role-playing game that was designed very much for storytelling, the way stories get told through role-playing games. I think there are a lot of cool innovations for that game, which is one of the reasons I'm so excited that we're going to be featuring it again for a second season.
Yeah, and that's one that it's hard for me to watch the Twitch stream, just because when you guys are on, I'm usually playing dad. So I'm always forget that I can go back and rewatch on the YouTube stream. So I'm excited that it's coming out as a podcast, because that's the easiest form for me to do anything. And where I listen to, I want to say 90% of my role playing podcasts I listen to are from the One Shot Network. There's Philadelphia is starting to get a bunch more that I'm at least discovering. So I listen to those because I like to support the home team as well. But I'm super excited for just I love how much content you're curating on the One Shot Network.
Well, thank you very much. I am really excited about all the new shows that we're adding.
Is there any plans, to expand the network further? I guess we're almost out of time for 2018, but how do you look ahead like to 2019? Like, hey, let's try to add 2 more shows a year, or how's that go?
So I think there will be more shows that have not been announced, but I kind of want to wait until some of those shows are further along. Something that I love all the people that I'm collaborating with, but some people are so excited to get a show in process that they'll announce it like months before it's ready to go up. And I usually like to announce things pretty close to when they're going up, at least for
Yes.
podcasts. It's different if like you're writing a role-playing game or something like that. But for a podcast, like I want to announce it and I want people to be able to find it right away, and for us to be already kind of on a schedule with it and whatnot. So there are new shows that we're going to be adding. I don't know how many new shows we intend to add in 2019. I kind of want to because I don't want to grow too quickly too much and take on too much responsibility, because like in order to add new shows, we also need to be able to grow that Patreon so the funding from the network can support everyone. But yeah, we do want to, continue pursuing our main goals, which are to make role-playing games more accessible and to make the hobby more inclusive. So doing adding shows, when we add those shows, are always going to have that sort of at the forefront of our minds.
I love that is important to your network. That's something I straight up stole for my network of wanting to be an inclusive place to have people that, maybe feel like they don't have a place to have their voice heard or whatever. We live in a shitty time right now, and I think people should be sharing their voice way more than they are. And I love that. And I forget where it was. Maybe maybe it was your Patreon video where you mentioned the inclusivity. I've seen it somewhere written multiple times or heard it multiple times from the one shot. And I 100% stole that inclusivity line from you guys, because it's super important to me as well. That anything, whether it's role-playing games, podcasting in general, it gets everyone's representation and not just the normal waspy dude like me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've seen that everywhere, because that is like a core mission statement for our company. And whenever we do something, we try to do something with that mission statement in mind. So like we're always trying to build towards that. And when we add a new show, or when, we decide that a show isn't for our network, that is usually one of the big factors behind that decision. There's always like the financial consideration, or, I don't know structurally if we can support a new show like this right now. But the other thing is like, when we're thinking through it, or thinking through anything that we do with our resources, is, how does this make RPGs more accessible? How does this make the community surrounding RPGs approachable to more people and different types of people? So we work towards that, and the reason that it's reiterated everywhere is like that's how you work towards that, as you keep reminding yourself that that's what you're going for.
There is a ton more that I wanted to get to. I wanted to chat wrestling with you a little bit, because I don't think we chatted much about that last time, and we missed it this time. But I think the good news is you will be probably doing something with Dungeon Dome sometime next year, if I remember the note that you made about that in your card game Kickstarter.
Yeah, we are looking to do some more Dungeon Dome stuff next year. I am sad that we didn't get to do as much this year.
So we'll definitely have to have you back on when it's time to do the promotional rounds for Dungeon Dome, whatever form that takes in 2019, and then we can solely focus on that genre of role playing and wrestling and all that stuff. I feel that's more appropriate anyway. But please let everyone know where they can find you, your podcast, your book, anything else that that you're doing that I didn't list. Where can people find all that?
So if you are looking for my podcasts and the entertainment stuff that I put out, you can head over to oneshotpodcast.com. There you'll be able to find my shows, One Shot and Campaign, along with all of the other wonderful shows that we have on the network. Whether you're looking for actual play programs, you can find shows like The Broadswords and Neoscum, or you're looking for interview and discussion-based programs where you can check out Backstory and Modifier, and new shows like Asians Represent. That is all going to be held there. You can also search for any of those shows on your favorite podcast app of choice. Now, if you want to connect with me, the easiest place to contact me is over on Twitter at OneShotRPG. And if for whatever reason you're not a Twitter person, you can always send me an email over at gamemaster@oneshotpodcast.com. Oh, yeah, that's right. And if you're looking for the book, you can pick up my new book, The Ultimate RPG Character Backstory Guide, anywhere books are sold. It's going to be in indie brick and mortar bookstores. It'll be in larger chains like Barnes and Noble and pretty much every online seller. If you are, kind enough to go out and purchase a book, I would be most appreciative if you took the time to leave a review for us over on Amazon, Goodreads, or whatever site you can. Those reviews really help the visibility of the book, which makes it so that I have less than no income, which would be nice.
Yeah. And I one of the coolest things is, and I don't know where I didn't look today, but the other day, I want to probably say release day. I saw on Amazon's page for it how it was like I think number one in the genre.
It is number one in certain categories. It's number one in GURPS. It's number one in Shadowrun. Actually, kind of a big achievement. Right now, it is number one in Pathfinder. Which is kind of big. But I think we're like number 10 in Dungeons and Dragons, which is still not really bad. Yeah. But they're probably comparing. I'm probably looking at like them selling tens of thousands of units, which is probably not a gap that I'm going to be able to bridge. But it's very exciting to see the response to it. My publisher has told me that it's very good, so I'm happy with it.
And like I said when we talked about it earlier, I think even if you don't play role-playing games and you're more of a fan of it like I am, where I listen to a bunch of podcasts about it, but you are a creative person, I think almost anybody could find a use out of this book, whether it's you're a writer that needs to build a world, or hey, you just need writing exercises. It's a great book for that, where you can take 10 minutes and go through an activity or two and help. Some of them maybe don't necessarily help with creative writing, but some of them are all about creative writing. So I think anyone that's creative, at least, can find a use for this book. So go out and get it. I highly recommend it. I was not satisfied with just the PDF copy, so I made sure to pre-order and had it shipped to me day of. So and plus, I mean, for me at least, I think it's great to just hold the book. So I would say go buy the print version. It's beautiful to look at. It's going to look gorgeous on a bookshelf. And, I love it. I love the book. So, James, thank you for being on the show, and I can't wait to have you on again.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is a blast, as always.
I'm recording this on the eve of the last episode of Star Wars Campaign being released. Super Friends, heroes. I can't praise that story that Cat Cole, along with James D'Amato, JPC, and Johnny O'Mara, and several guest stars, enough. Campaign has meant the world to me over the last 2 years. Jeff Stormer introduced me to Campaign during his first appearance on Everything Is Awesome so long ago. Not long after that, my uncle was diagnosed with cancer. My uncle always felt more like an older brother to me. He was only 16 years older than me. And he helped shape me into the person I am today. My first experience with Star Wars was watching it with him. Neither of us did deep dives into the extended universe of Star Wars. But anytime I think about that franchise, or I watch something from that franchise, or I read something from that franchise, I think about that very first time I watched A New Hope. After a brief celebration of my uncle going into remission, he took a turn for the worse. While experiencing the roller coaster of what that meant, I turned to podcasting to get me through it. Very specifically, Campaign. The Crew of the Minoc allowed me to smile through one of the worst times of my life, at least as an adult. The fact that it was within, or at least adjacent to, the Star Wars universe was a bonus that allowed me to smile while thinking of my uncle. Normally, I take a moment to thank my guest at this juncture, and while I'm very, very grateful for James to taking time out of his day from his busy schedule to sit down and chat with me, I want to thank the cast of Campaign, Kat, James, JPC, Johnny, and all those guest stars. Thank you. You helped save this mid-30s man-child. I was in a bad place, and while I also had my friends, my fiance, and my kids to thank for saving me, they weren't with me all the time. Campaign has been with me on my phone, on my computer, and available to me at the times where I was alone and sad. Even if it was just for an hour, I was able to smile because of you guys. I am very sad to say goodbye to the Crew of the Minoc, but I can't wait to see what each of you have up your sleeve for the future. Kat, you are such a wonderful storyteller. I can't wait to hop on board with Autonomic and see what you do with that. I know it's going to be a story worth listening to and a story worth telling. James, Johnny, and JPC, your performances are equal parts comedic and dramatic. I can't wait to see what you guys do with this new world of Skyjacks. No matter what it is, I know you guys are going to crush it. In favor of keeping this outro as short as possible, please check the show notes for all the ways you can find James and his projects, including a link to his book, The Ultimate RPG Character Backstory Guide. Check out thatentertains.com/network for more awesome shows, and remember to go out and vote on November 6th. And remember, heroes, make brave and heroic decisions. Thank you to all of our supporters on patreon.com/thatentertains. Without their support, we wouldn't be able to bring this episode to you. If you want to support us in a non-monetary way, word-of-mouth recommendations and 5-star rating reviews on iTunes are the best way to spread the good word of awesome. You can find us on Facebook.com and Twitter @RealAwesomePod or @AwesomePodcast on Instagram. And we're available on awesomepodcast.com and thatentertains.com/network. Get news about everything is awesome from our website, social media accounts, and also on my personal Twitter @ThatNerdyKev. If you're interested in ad rates, live appearances, help with your podcast, or have a question or comment, email us at awesome@crudeHumorstudios.com. Everything is Awesome is a production of That's Entertainment Podcast Network in association with Crude Humor Studios. Crude Humor Studios is a Philadelphia-based production company specializing in audio, video, and live performances. You can find more info at crudehumorstudios.com. Thanks for listening, super friends. We've been awesome!
That's Entertainment Podcast Network. Entertainment and culture. Artist-owned, fan-supported.